I've put an application into my PCT, and I have pointed out to them that in my life I have a new job doing good. I wrote a letter saying that my mother always wanted me to have a job that did good for people, and finally, having wasted my life as a journalist and a music entrepreneur for 30 years, I finally got a real job, which is as a regeneration consultant, trying to make life different for 500,000 people in East Lancashire. And I believe in that job, and I think that's I said to them, I wouldn't expect you to unnecessarily prolong a fulfilled life, but I now have a reason for fulfillment, I have a reason for living, and I would like you to support this.
Paul Ryder.
My reaction was, okay, he's got cancer. I know people that have got cancer, and I know people that have had cancer and sadly died. And maybe he's going to be one of them that's going to have it 15, 20 years, and it'll finally get him. So I was convinced he was going to, you know, soldier on for a good 10, 15 years. It was horrible. It was a shock, but it was one of them. It's Tony. He's a big guy. You know, he'll talk his way out of it.
The cancer didn't seem to stop him until it totally stopped him. He lived out his final months with typical restlessness, curiosity, anger, good humour, irritability and fearlessness. He hated that people were being nice to him. He preferred the rowdier, less respectful treatment that kept him stimulated. Mark Radcliffe.
I think Tony is one of those people who kind of invented his own film in which to live. Change themselves to the prevailing conditions and look as if they'd sort of invented parts of it, which you can either then say is kind of, you know, really clever and chameleonic and adapting to the times, or, you know, or makes people a kind of grade A phony. And I think, you know, again, Tony's a massive contradictions. There are probably parts of both of those things in him. So whilst a lot of people would shout wanker at him at concerts because he was not a kind of sort of shaven-headed bloke in a football shirt, and so he was not a kind of willing participant in the mob. It seems to me Tony's whole life is to kind of raise himself above the mob, and also, you know, make everything that he touched a bit special. I think this is wholly noble.
He kept an informal eye on the making of Anton Corbijn's film about the life and death of Ian Curtis, another record of the way Wilson willed history into being. He never got to see Control. He died on the evening of August the 10th, surrounded by his family. Paul Ryder.
I think everybody felt it, even people that didn't know him, even people that used to watch him on the news and said, oh, he's a wanker. When something like that happens, you realise how much he did for the city. And the floral tribute outside the building that was the Hacienda was just beautiful, you know what I mean? It was really cool.
Ben Kelly.
I suppose this is what happens to people who are in the public eye, who are loved by some and hated by others, and indifference in between. But it's taken Tony to pop his clogs for people to come out and speak out about the role that he played and the importance he had, you know, related to Manchester as a whole. And, you know, had he still been alive, everyone would have been sort of moaning, complaining about him, and the opposite as well. But the day of his funeral was the most extraordinary thing. It's like, you know, Manchester came out to say goodbye.
Yvette Livesey.
The week after Tony died, the amount of people in the business that phoned me up and just said, what can we do to help? I was absolutely bowled over, actually. People were genuinely lovely. And it's funny, this year's in the city was one of the nicest we've ever had, because it was a really lovely atmosphere and people were there for all the right reasons as well. But the support from the industry was just fabulous. But yeah, so he died, and 1 week later I had regeneration work to launch. So I stood on the side of a canal in Burnley with TV crews around me, freezing to death at 9 o'clock in the morning, going, you bastard.
This has been Paul Morley with FAC 501, Anthony H. Wilson, summing up his life in a way that he would have loved and hated. But at least we didn't say that it was a tribute to Mr. Manchester himself, Tony Wilson.